SpaceX put down their orbital booster rocket for the Orbcomm 2 mission onto the landing pad at Cape Canaveral, and everybody who was watching it absolutely lost their mind,
So
including
just to clear up, that's the part that usually breaks off and doesn't finish the mission, right? And falls into the ocean.
Yeah, so the booster rocket, as I said, on Earth, you need an extra bit of oomph, and that's true for pretty much every launch vehicle. So you get a large fuel tank, essentially, and a bunch of powerful engines to push the rest of the rocket through the atmosphere and get it up into space. And traditionally, that large fuel tank and bunch of expensive engines were then snapped off the upper stage of the rocket so that they're not hauling that dead weight with them, and let plummet back into the ocean. And this was true of all of the Apollo rockets. It was true of the big orange tank on the space shuttle, and basically any rocket you can think of, that was how it was done. And there was an idea out there. I've seen like concept art from back in the Apollo days when they were thinking about that huge arse on the Saturn V, that big 10-meter diameter bottom of it, that they would unfurl the largest parachute ever conceived and have that thing slow down as it fell back into the atmosphere, and then get the largest helicopter ever conceived to snag it and bring it back to land and drop it again. Not really doable with 1960s technology. Debatable as to whether it will be doable with modern technology. But SpaceX's solution to that was absolute genius. It was, we've got a rocket. Why don't we use the rocket to land the rocket? And so they just point the engines at the ground, and as it falls back to Earth, and in particular with the Falcon 9, the engines on it, there's 9 engines on the bottom of the Falcon 9, which is where it got its name.
Nice.
Each one of those engines is too powerful to be able to hover the rocket, which is to say, if it's falling downwards toward the ground and you shoot the engines toward the ground, it will slow down, stop, and if you don't turn off the engine, it will start rising again because the engine cannot throttle down low enough to hover.
Okay.
Because if you try to, the engine will explode. It gets unstable and blows up. So they have to have an extremely precisely timed engine burn that happens at just the right moment, so that when it hits that zero velocity point, it is at zero height. So they call that the suicide burn. So, and that's part of what makes it so bloody exciting to watch this happen, is that it's like down to the wire as to whether it's going to actually survive the landing. But they have, like, they did that first landing back on December 21st, 2015. It was about 4:30 in the morning, and I screamed in joy and nearly passed out from how deliriously happy I was that it was happening. Because to me, that was the culmination of all of SpaceX's kind of high-minded ideas and projections for the future and these crazy thoughts about colonizing Mars. It's all predicated on, can you do this thing that's never been done before that will lower the cost of access to space by such a huge amount, because you don't have to buy or pay for the construction of a new rocket every single time you want to go to space. So they did that one, and then the next one failed to land, and then the next one landed okay, but one of the landing legs didn't lock and it fell over and blew up.
I remember that one, yeah.
And then, so there were quite a few failures, and in April 2016, the one in December, it landed on a concrete landing pad at Cape Canaveral. And in order to get back there, the rocket has to first turn itself around, cancel out all of its sideways velocity, because a lot of people think going to space, you just go up and then somehow you stay there. But no, if you go up and turn off the engines, you're going to fall back down. So in order to get into orbit, you need to go sideways and be going fast enough that when you fall back down, the Earth is actually curved away under you with the curvature of the Earth. And so your fall just keeps on turning you, and you end up falling around the planet. And that's what an orbit is. Because there's no air resistance up there, you don't lose speed from that. So you just keep falling around the planet. That's all that orbit is. It's falling with style.
Falling in
so
perpetuity.
yeah,
Nice.
falling and missing the ground, as Douglas Adams put it. It's a really good way to put it. You fall and miss the ground. That's orbit. I love that. But anyway, so because you need to go very quickly sideways, and because your booster stage has assisted you with a lot of that sideways velocity, it's now when you separate the upper stage, and by the way, the upper stage has an engine on it and it goes on to orbit and delivers the payload to wherever it's supposed to go. But that booster rocket is now separated and it's now flying sideways away from where it came from with no power on it. And if you reserve a little bit of fuel in that, you can flip the booster around, fire the engines towards your direction of motion, so hitting the brakes with the engines, and then you can reduce your velocity in that direction. And if you like map out the projected trajectory, say that 10 times fast, ahead of yourself, you'll kind of see that when it separates, it's not at orbital speed, so that the arc of that trajectory will head towards the ocean. And with a traditional rocket, that's the arc it would follow. If you then keep that projection live as you turn the rocket around and fire the engines to brake it, that arc starts to shrink until the impact point is directly below the rocket, and then it flips around and the impact point starts to go back along the course towards where the rocket came from. So that's called the boost back burn. And that is just awesome to see, especially if a launch occurs at sunset or shortly after sunset. You get this effect where the rocket and the gas it's spewing out into the vacuum of space are above the shadow of the Earth, so they're getting the sunlight, and you get this ghostly kind of jellyfish effect. If you search for SpaceX Jellyfish, you'll see all these beautiful imagery, and videos in particular are just amazing. The first few times it happened, it freaked people out because they thought it was like some kind of portal into another dimension or something.
Yeah, I've seen it. Aliens, conspiracy theorists went happy. Yeah.
I remember the first few times it happened over LA in particular, because they launch out of a launch site north of LA called Vandenberg Air Force Base. And when they do that, they're typically aiming for a polar orbit, which means going south along the coast. So they go right past LA. And the first few times that happened, there was just like social media saturation of all these videos of people going, "Oh my God, is that North Korea?" They thought it was like a nuclear explosion in the upper atmosphere or something, but it looks absolutely stunningly beautiful. And you can see.
I only saw the ones about aliens attacking us and where did they land, like.
But you can see in that jellyfish, there'll be smaller puffs that are going off and like expanding out like little brackets or ripples. And that's the maneuvering thrusters on the rocket orienting it to turn it around. And then you'll see that it like lights up a big and a new cloud will erupt out of it. And that's it doing its boost back burn. So although the videos from LA, they didn't typically do a boost back burn. But anyway, so you have two options. You can do the boost back burn, and that will send you back towards the launch site that you came from, or that the rocket stage came from. And then you do another little turnaround, you have another tiny little bit of fuel left, and you can do your suicide burn just as you, I'm skipping over the entry burn. That's just to prevent it burning up. It's a little more technical, but basically it needs to slow down a little bit so the atmosphere itself doesn't kill the rocket. Yeah. So it does a little boost back, or a little entry burn as it hits the top of the atmosphere. And then as it gets close to land, it does that suicide, that precisely timed suicide burn to land with zero velocity at 0 meters on the landing pad. And it's so beautiful because it's this 16-story tall, essentially an office building that's just falling out of the sky. And then it lights this rocket and it touches down as gently as a ballet dancer, doing a little jump. It's gorgeous. So that's option one. But
hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see the full version, go to the Uncle Gold Podcast YouTube channel or watch the next clip.